and it's going to continue so in the upcoming years as well. So we've up to now seen the need for enterprises to endorse web APIs, and we've seen what exactly is web API, and the fact that the kind of value that it could bring to businesses. What we now have to see is web API about building a REST facade around all of your enterprise's assets and information, or is it something that has a business to it and that needs to be approached more holistically? That's what we'll now see. So the business of API is what we have to see now. So the first and foremost, you need to understand the value chain in the API economy. So there is a bunch of stakeholders out there, starting from the business user, one end of the spectrum, to the end user at the other end of the spectrum. So the business owner is looking at very tangible business value through this API enablement. If there are assets or information that needs to be exposed as APIs, the business owner wants to have a value that comes back to business in return to this exposure of APIs. So to the application developer, there needs to be a value in using the APIs that you expose. Your API should enable application developer to do something really cool and nice so that the applications that the developer makes sells very well with the user community. And obviously the user, the end user, has to see a whole lot of benefit in using an application. It needs to make the user's life easy or interesting or delightful in some manner or the other. So if you look at it, there are several parties over here, and the value chain flows from the business owner to the end user, and you have to make sure that the API that you expose brings value across this entire chain. That really determines the success of your web API management story. So the first and foremost is the value chain, and the fact that you need to be aware about the value that the API needs to bring in. So the next thing that you have to do is, once you know that this is what there is to it, the value that an API should bring in, you need to start by strategizing. Now, web APIs are not something that can go off totally disconnected with your business. They have to be very closely aligned with your business goals. So you need to actually step back and understand what is it that you want to achieve in your business. Is it revenue through new channels, or is it faster delivery through of mobile apps, or is it for penetration of your brand further? What is it that you want to achieve as part of your business goal in this particular web API enablement initiative? You need to be very clear on that. And it's important that you watch your APIs very closely as a product. They virtually become a product because they impact your business channels a great deal. So you need to nurture them and have a very well-defined strategy behind them. So let's assume that you've understood the value chain and you now have a business strategy. You have put down some business goals which you want to address via web API enablement of your enterprise's assets. So the next thing is, which of the assets would you like to choose for exposing as APIs? So you have to, again, get back to your business goals and to the value chain and understand which of those assets are aligning with your web API goals, web API business goals. You also have to answer what sort of value the asset, when exposed as an API, is likely to bring to the application developer community, and what sort of applications you envision as being developed out of your APIs. Now, this is to help you think what sort of new business areas this API is likely to draw you to, or is it likely that it's going to fatten up a lot more your existing revenue streams? So those are the questions that you need to put against your business assets and information. It's not like you go off and REST enable all of your business assets and information. You need to really choose which one of them you want to expose as API, and you need to sort of balance against the value that they are likely to bring into your business. So lying subtly, in this aspect of choosing assets is the integration that you have to make. Now, most of your business assets may not be sort of API enabled already. They may not be sort of having a REST facade of sorts already. So in doing this, you may have to go and deal with some bit of integration and mediation that exposes the API on one side to the external world and mediates to the information that's lying within your enterprise. So keep in mind that there is some mediation and integration work that you have to do as part of this API enablement. So once you've fixed on what APIs you want to expose, the next important thing is how would you want to expose them? Would you want to make them available free, or do you want to charge your application developers for using your APIs, or do you want to actually pay these developers for using the APIs? So that again depends on what your business goal is. So don't you see that web API is not a trivial thing? It's not like you go and REST enable all of your enterprise resources. Every step that you make, there are quite a bunch of things that you have to take care, and every step you take in the web API enablement journey, you have to always get back to what your business goal is, right? So over here, you have to get back to understand, is your goal to actually drive brand loyalty, or is it just that you want to jump onto some new channels, in which case you may want to make your APIs available for free. Or if you think you have very valuable information like marketing analytics or news, or capabilities that can verify the creditworthiness of individuals, well, you may want to expose APIs around those capabilities and actually make the developers pay for them, because that's a valuable capability which developers would love to exploit, and you may want to make the best out of it by exposing those capabilities as API. The other model is where you can pay the developer for using your APIs, because you may want to huddle in your brand's advertisement as part of the APIs, and you can sort out the payment part in different modes as to be a percentage of the revenue that you get out of sales that are happening via those APIs and things like that. So that model is also something that could work for you. And then you could go for a mixed approach where up to a certain point in time you could say the APIs are free, after which you say developers have to pay for it. Now that's about the model that you want to adopt for exposing the API. Coming along with it, very, very importantly, is the legal bindings. So remember, you're going to expose your enterprise's information and assets as APIs to an external world of application developers. It's very important that you bind these application developers to certain legal terms and conditions. So things like points about terms and conditions around sharing personal information, import-export regulations that exist in different geographies where the APIs would end up getting used, things like that. Now, there is a whole legal side to this story that needs to be enforced. So if you look at it, you need something in place to meter your API so that you can appropriately charge for it or not. And also you need a mechanism to enforce the legal terms and conditions. So once you have defined what your API should be, which asset should be exposed as an API, you fixed on the model that you want to follow to expose the API, and you've also sorted out the legalities. The next thing that you have to do, which is the obvious thing, is how do you push these APIs to the developer community? So we are talking about the community of alpha developers, very smart, creative guys who are very internet savvy, love to hang out in social networking hubs. They hate reading a whole bunch of documentation to get something very simple done as part of the application, and they also don't like marketing, right? So this is the kind of community that you have to chase to use your APIs. So how do you go about doing that? So first, you need to understand what is it that can motivate these developers to use your APIs. You may want to go and do a bit of socializing in different hubs. You may want to use the different social media options that we have to socialize your hubs and sort of reach the ears of this application developer community. And once this community is interested, you may have to ensure that they find your APIs easily, that they don't have to go out and search too much to actually spot your APIs. So it's important that they find your APIs easily, and they're also able to find a whole lot of information, useful information on how to use your APIs, how to get help around the APIs, and very importantly, some tooling that helps them to quickly test your APIs and also generate some widgets if possible for the APIs that you've put out there. So the business of API is a very serious thing and needs a full-time product manager. So it's very important for enterprises to engage a full-time product manager to attend to the business of API, because the APIs for a business are a product in their own space and can impact business, a great deal. So once you have your APIs published, do you sit back and relax? Well, that's not how it goes. Just as in the case of any other thing that's there in our IT world, you need to watch this thing. This is, as I mentioned earlier, is a product in its own space. So you need to watch how the API is doing, how it's doing vis-a-vis the goals, the business goals that you've set. So you have to collect a whole lot of metrics around how your APIs are being used and how it's translating into business value for your enterprise. So you need to track that, you need to evaluate it, and you have to constantly adjust the APIs as well. You don't want an outdated product in the market, isn't it? So the same applies to APIs. So you have to watch the APIs and also watch the developer community as to what are the changing trends, what is it that they like about the API, what is it that they don't like about the API, and you have to brace yourself to continuously improve and change your APIs. But you have to really watch out for a very important thing, which is about breaking applications. So when you have to, when you're planning for changes around your APIs, you have to take care to see that you don't break your old APIs over which there could be a whole lot of applications developed. So what developers hate is to hear that their applications have broke because some API broke down the line. That makes you totally of assessing and tuning your APIs over a period of time. You have to make sure there is also backward compatibility that you've given, right? So in net, you have to collect a whole bunch of metrics around your API usage from the angle of metering its usage to how well is it doing regards to your business goals, who is using which API for what purpose, and where. So those are the things that you may want to continuously monitor to make sure